A report has emerged from the Ukrainian General Staff that the defense forces have had success in the direction of Novoprokopivka in the Zaporizhia region. In the eastern sector of the Novoprokopivka locality, units of the enemy's 70th Motorized Rifle Regiment have been reinforced by the 1430th and 41st Motorized Rifle Regiments of the Territorial Forces, but there is a nuance. As recently as last week, these very forces, which have now been thrown in for backup, have themselves lost their combat effectiveness. But with the shortage of resources, no one brings them out to make up for the loss of personnel and equipment. All of them are immediately put to meat. Well, since the times of the USSR, the tactics of the Russian command have not changed. Military OSINT analysts, who observe what is happening in the southern direction, write that the Ukrainian General Staff constantly uses forces in different points of the front, forcing the enemy to rush to plug the holes, which is absolutely logical. The tactic of thousand cuts in action most often began to talk about the advance in Berdyansk and Melitopol direction. In general, Melitopol is the key to the liberation of the south. But some people think that there are two further scenarios, to liberate Berdyansk or to liberate Melitopol. In fact, this is part of one big offensive scenario, and at this point in history it is more relevant to talk about Tokmak. There is such a concept as key points or key zones. They are called key for a reason, because they are like a key that opens the next stages of the offensive. In officer schools, commanders are trained to find key points during exercises and war games. There should always be a minimum number of key points. That is, you should not say, "Aha! This height is a key point, and this route is a key point, there is a forest, somewhere else the enemy can hide, also a key point." This is the wrong approach. You find the key points, then you minimize them further, and as a result only the most important ones remain. It should be a minimum of points with a maximum of possibilities, that if you control them or even influence them, then you kind of open the next stages. A classic example is the Kherson operation. The key points were of course bridges, logistics of the enemy. They were not occupied physically, but there was fire action on them. And they kind of opened up the next stage. The fact that the enemy couldn't resupply, their logistics were disrupted, and they had to retreat. Same thing here. And in any combat or operational situation. Operational art is based on this, it proceeds from this. So, Tokmak is one of the key points, key zones, because one of the very important logistic arteries, the railroad, passes there. And then of course, there will be Melitopol and Berdyansk, but first Tokmak. And it is not even important to occupy Tokmak, but to take under fire control just this logistic chain and eventually, of course, to liberate it, but first of all it is permanent fire control. Artillery is already reaching Tokmak now, but we need to reach the city with anything at all, including mortars. The forces of liberation of Ukraine need to come so close that there is already an opportunity to put even ATGMs and fire on this railroad, so that it is so close. Like the railroad that goes from Volnovakha to the north, it is literally just a few kilometers from the front, so the occupants do not use it. That is, the front must come a few kilometers literally to this railway line. And then a new key point will open up.